went absolutely off last night in Brooklyn in overtime. Doncic took over, dominated the Nets in the extra session, and took his team to a win.
It was good to see Tim Hardaway score 18, being really productive to help Luka out. McGee, championship pedigree, big guy running the floor, catching those dimes and finishing them. But when I got confused, I looked at the sideline. It was Jason Kidd, one of the greatest point guards of all time. Mm-hmm. And what I saw is him crafting an offense for Luka that allows Luka to be him.
He's him.
He is I, and I am him. And coming into this season, who did I say is going to be MVP?
Luka Doncic.
Just think about this for a second. He was doing this against KD and Kyrie when both of them were still getting buckets.
KD and Kyrie did great. Matter of fact, every game the Nets have played, KD and Kyrie have combined for at least 60 points, but they're not winning games.
Teachers teach and do the world good. Kings just rule and most are never understood. So why did the Mavs win, Jalen, over the Nets, even though KD and Kyrie were playing so very well? Is because Luka's making the people around him better.
Yep.
That's the difference. If you look at their rosters, who would you think have a better roster?
I would think on paper you would say the Nets.
Okay, so one guy has 14 assists, 11 boards to go with 41 points. Mm-hmm. That means
love that pass so much.
80 of their points he either scored or assisted. 80. One gentleman, Luka. And you know the thing I love about him so much is when he get a dunk, he just started laughing.
He barely dunked.
He just started laughing. He went baseline and got that dunk. He like, y'all let me dunk? Like, see, of all people on the court, y'all let me dunk? You know, y'all ain't got a chance if y'all letting that happen.
How many Mavs possessions are Luka just getting to the teeth of the defense and just kicking out to a wide open three-point shooter? How many times did that happen?
Well, Jacoby, here's what I thought about. Steph Curry and Luka are the two most unguardable perimeter players in the game. And Ja Morant, those three. But Luka, what makes Luka different from the other two is that when you're playing against the Mavs, you'll try all five of your people on Luka because of his size. So you'll have your perimeter guys guarding him, you have your guards guarding him, you have your bigs guarding him, you have your center guarding Luka. And so now it's like the guy that's in the fight and everybody wants to rush him and he just punched the bully. Nobody can stop Luka.
No.
And to your point, takes his time, gets into his zone, isn't rushed, gets to his spot, makes a play. Luka's an incredible athlete, and I don't like to necessarily do generational comparisons, but the pace that he plays at, it reminds me of what Larry Bird would look like if he played today.
I love Larry Bird so much.
You prayed to a Larry Bird poster
every
growing up.
Game.
You
Before
prayed.
I left the house, I prayed to the
do you see that pace?
I mean, they have very different games, but it's kind of like if Larry Bird was born 40 years later.
The pace that he played.
Game Time was injured during last night's loss to the Heat. Going to be reevaluated in 7 to 14 days. Six-time All-Star off to quite the start this season, averaging 31 points over the Blazers' first 5 games. And the Trailblazers are off tonight, but they're back in action on Friday against the Rockets. Again, taking a look at their upcoming schedule. Last night was their first loss of the season. This after starting the year with 4 straight wins. All right, to get reaction on this, we've got our coach Avery Johnson joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. So it's a 1 to 2 week time frame, Avery. However, it is a calf. So what are your initial thoughts here of hearing that news for Damian Lillard?
Well, the calf injuries are very temperamental. We've seen it last year, especially come playoff time with Luka Doncic. He had a calf injury, and he missed quite a bit sometime towards the end of the year in that first round matchup against Utah. And fortunately for them, a guy that's in a Knicks uniform, now Jalen Brunson, saved him. So calf injuries are tough. I've had calf injuries. Calves, hamstrings is always a longer time frame than what you think. They're saying 1 to 2 weeks. I would be surprised if he's back within that 1 week time frame. I would think more to 2 to 3 weeks just to be on the safe side. And it depends on, if he's a quick healer or not. So they're going to have to really tread cautiously here. Damian Lillard coming into last night's game was averaging 33 points, 50% from the field, 40% from the three-point line. And in 26 minutes last night, he had 22 points, and he's led them in scoring 4 out of the last 5 games. So this is going to be a huge loss, obviously, as an understatement for the Portland Trail.
And you talked about how tough it is and how fickle it can be. What makes it difficult? What makes it tough for a guy like Damian who operates the way he does and then having to deal with this type of injury?
Well, it's different for a big guy, but when you're talking about guards, the way we move, the lateral movement up and down, we're playing with that, breakneck speed. It's a different thing than a big guy just kind of lumbering down the floor, not as much being asked. You got to defend pick and rolls. You change gears a lot more than traditional big guys. So when you're talking about those little small calf muscles, if you come back too soon and when you re-injure it, then he's out longer, or you can overcompensate and injure another part of your body.
And for a guy like a head coach like yourself, take us through what Chauncey Billups is going through, because his team is off to a good start. Going into the year, they were a middle-of-the-pack team, so expectations aren't high, but they are playing well at the moment. Then they lose their star in Damian Lillard. Again, it's not a long-term type of injury, but how do you anticipate the Blazers will navigate this schedule without Dame?
Well, he's probably going to have to move Anthony Simons over, who's gotten off to a really good start and good-looking young player in his 4th year. He's probably got to move him over into that point guard spot. Justice Winslow is another guy that you may be able to play through. Nurkic, the big guy, you can play through him a little bit because he's a really good passer. So they're going to have to reinvent themselves a little bit, because in the past you had C.J. McCollum. Now he's playing with the Pelicans. So they're going to have to have more of a point guard by committee with their entire team rather than leaning on one guy, because they really don't have a true backup for Damian Lillard.
All right, Coach, certainly appreciate it. Avery Johnson joining us here on CBS Sports HQ with that breaking news. Again, Damian Lillard missing at least 1 to 2 weeks with that strained calf injury. Blazers are off tonight. I mentioned they play the Rockets tomorrow. It is a relatively light slate in the association. 4 games on tap. Mavericks and Nets. We were talking about Luka Doncic at the top. Clippers and the Thunder, with LA laying the 7. Heat and Warriors